If you're a fan of science fiction, fantasy, or horror, you're going to run into a lot of shows I like to call one-season wonders. Shows that made a big splash and then just disappeared, or maybe they didn't make a splash at all, but were otherwise influential, important, or even infamous. This is kinda one of them. Before I start this off, I want to say I couldn't have done any of this without information and videos from the website BillAndTed.org, who have an interesting interview with series star Evan Richards, and the YouTube channel Wild Stallions Forever. They've created an incredible archive of everything Bill and Ted, so go give them a visit and show them some support.
We are two cutting-edge marketing bohemians.
Also on TV, most excellent dudes, Bill and Ted, share their excellent adventures when they journey through time in their magic phone booth.
I know I'm late to the party on talking about the Bill and Ted live-action TV series, but I literally forgot it existed until a week ago, so better now than never, right? The Bill and Ted franchise hold an interesting place in pop culture. It was a relative flash in the pan, really only lasting for 3 years, from the release of the original film in 1989 to the cancellation of the live-action and animated series in 1992, basically ending the same time that heavy metal and hair metal met their pop culture end, which is fitting since the characters of Bill and Ted are prototypical metalheads. Actually, they're supposed to be stoners, but pretending they're just dumb metalheads was more acceptable back in 1989. The first film was a hit at the box office and well liked by audiences. Orion Pictures was quick to spin this off into an animated series in 1990 with original film stars Keanu Reeves, Alex Winter, and George Carlin returning to provide voices in the first season. The premise is simple and almost exactly the same as the Back to the Future animated series that debuted a year later. Bill and Ted have a time machine and go on excellent adventures through history. That's it. Oh, and they also go inside books and stuff. That's basically the same premise as the live-action TV series. In fact, they have the exact same name. To be honest, pluralizing adventure is kind of a layup, so why not take it? But that wasn't all for the Bill and Ted franchise. There were multiple video game adaptations released, a comic book series from Marvel, action figures, and even a breakfast cereal.
Visit the land of heavy metal with our most excellent cereal.
You have a cereal?
We have a breakfast cereal, man. That's heavy. That's heavy. Breakfast cereal.
Why? Is it bad?
Oh, no, it's actually really good. That's the scary part. It blows Lucky Charms away. But,
So you like the cereal?
it's really embarrassing to say, you know, it's like merchandising. I don't actually wear the Bill and Ted pajamas, but I love the cereal. I really do.
So it's a little surprising how the franchise just sorta sputtered out, and a third film spent almost 20 years in development hell. Why was this? The easy answer is the second film underperformed at the box office, and the TV series was just so goddamn bad it killed the franchise. Which isn't wrong, but I personally think it's a bit more nuanced than that. I'll come back to all of this at the end. For now, let's talk about the show.
This is the future. San Dimas, California, 2692. A most excellent society based on the philosophy of the two great ones, Bill and Ted, and the music of their band, the Wild Stallions.
Discussions for a TV series began almost as soon as the film's release, with Bill and Ted creators Ed Solomon and Chris Matheson pitching a show to Fox. The offer was rejected and the project lay dormant until Beverly Hills 90210 creator Darren Star expressed interest in the series. After that, Clifton Campbell was brought on to produce and write. Clifton had a history in television, having written for multiple dramas, including 21 Jump Street, and produced the short-lived series Unsub, Wise Guy, and Likely Suspects. But you can't make a Bill and Ted series without Bill and Ted. Many people have presumed that Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves turned down being involved in the show because they had no interest in working in television. But Alex Winter gives the real reason for them declining the roles.
And isn't there a live-action series coming?
Yeah, there is. There is a live-action series coming.
Are you going to be in that?
No.
Oh.
No.
Why? You don't like to do...
Well, no, it's not even that. It's just, they didn't really let us get involved with the script. They didn't let any of us get involved with the creation of it. And so none of us, like the writers and me and Keanu, were really involved enough to make it what we wanted.
Yeah.
You know, as far as shaping the sequel, we all got together a couple years ago, and we were all very much involved in what we wanted to do, you know, what we wanted to do with the characters. And they were like, well, you know, here's what you're gonna do, here's what it's gonna be about, and it's gonna be like Porky's. Are you interested? No thanks. Fast.
Have you seen any of this new live-action one?
Yeah.
How does it look? Is it?
Well, I don't know. Can I say this is gonna be on this network? It's not, is it?
It doesn't matter. You can just tell the truth. That's
okay.
That's what's best.
I'm gonna stare right into that camera and tell it stinks, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what to say.
From all accounts, their involvement was otherwise never sought for the rest of the show's production run, something that became a sore point. So a casting call was put out to find a new Bill and Ted. Christopher Kennedy was selected to play Ted Theodore Logan. A Toronto native, he had roles in commercials, music videos, and a small part on an episode of My Secret Identity. Yep, that's him. For the role of Bill S. Preston Esquire, Evan Richards was cast. Evan was almost literally born into acting, his first role being an ad for Pampers, the son of actress Diana Darren, who had a long career appearing in over 35 films, but was best perhaps known for her roles appearing alongside the Three Stooges. Because of a clause in the contract with Orion Television, the show couldn't begin airing until the sequel Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey had made a certain amount at the box office. No problem, except Bogus Journey, in Hollywood speak, underperformed. It didn't bomb, but it didn't do the box office it was expected. It was also more expensive than the original film. It meant it took even longer to make its money back. So by the time it did begin airing, the franchise was already on the downswing. But finally the show premiered on Sunday night, June 28, 1992. Because of this, you actually get Christopher Kennedy and Evan Richards debuting as Bill and Ted first on the animated series, where they replaced Reeves and Winters in the second season of the show when it moved networks from CBS to Fox Kids and changed production companies from Hanna-Barbera to D.
Which one of you can name that last piece of music?
Ted, my friend, I can name that tune in 5 notes. Bill, my most esteemed compatriot, I can name that tune in 4 notes.
Will you guys just name that tune?
Ted, my esteemed colleague, our music has fallen upon deaf ears. I did not think we played that loud. Musically, this was a most frustrating experience.
Now onto the show itself. The entire series, including the unaired pilot, are available for free on YouTube, so it isn't hard to track down. Let's start with that unaired pilot episode. I don't think you can judge the show too much on the pilot, because it's more of a proof of concept than a proper pilot. It's also not even an entire episode, it just sort of ends 15 minutes in. It's mainly meant to give an idea of how the show can be about more than just time travel, with Bill and Ted going inside a noir-style gangster comic and bringing someone back with them. As for the quality of the pilot itself, well, I feel the same way about it that I do the first few episodes. It's horrendous. In fact, the first few episodes are unbelievably horrible. Seriously, watching the show at first, I hated it. I hated every frame of it. I couldn't stand the terrible jokes, the performances are like nails on a chalkboard. Everyone for some reason is screaming at Bill and Ted.
The heck are you two doing here? I gave you the day off.
You trying to say I made a mistake?
What?
In the pilot, Bill and Ted need to get jobs to fix their blown amp, otherwise they can't play the school dance, because somehow that will fuck up the future. That doesn't even make sense. Hang on, let's do the math. The minimum wage in California in 1990 was $4.25 an hour, that's $34 for an 8-hour day before taxes, assuming 5-day work week, and they pull their money. Yeah, they're screwed. A couple minutes later, they're inside a comic book, and they get jobs at a hardware store, and then it ends. The story makes no sense, character motivations make no sense. After the scene with Bill and Ted's dad and Missy, suddenly the bit about the show being like Porky's makes a lot more sense. And did I say I hate the performances? I don't mean this as a knock at Christopher Kennedy and Evan Richards, in case either of you happen to see this. I mean this as a knock at the writers and everyone else on the creative end who don't seem to have any understanding of what makes Bill and Ted work in the first place. It's not that Bill and Ted are stupid, they're just good-natured but naive and have a narrow worldview. Plus, what's with the pretentious way they speak? Again, in the movies, the guys tended to use $5 words, so to speak, but they turned this up to 11 to the point that most of what they say is just nonsense.
We blew it, Ted. No, dude. Our hopes have been most transplantedly dashed.
Ted, are you sensing something of the most peculiar nature?
San Dimas High, the most excellent institution of higher education, has wigged. The entire student body has signed up for Amore 101.
The first episode isn't much better. Bill and Ted's boss, Mr. Kielson, played by Second City veteran Danny Breen, who's introduced in the unaired pilot and never reintroduced, he's just always there, accidentally uses the phone booth to go back in time, pulls the sword from the stone, and becomes the King of England. Much of the comedy is derived from the juxtaposition of Mr. Kielson and a bunch of actors playing things straight and acting their asses off.
With the sword, we have the power to win back the land taken from us in the last war by the dreaded dog, Belisario.
Nice.
War begets war. Blood is shed. Men and munitions lost. Penalty. Warmonger.
Boy, don't fight at the round table.
You can probably figure out where the story goes, and check out a young pre-Drew Carey show, pre-Batman Diedrich Bader as King Arthur. The second episode isn't much better. Missy gets upset when a character on her favorite soap reveals themselves to be transgender, and now she won't have sex with Bill's dad. For some reason. So he starts restoring a classic car in the garage, and now Bill and Ted can't rehearse, so they use the phone booth to go inside the TV show and convince the character not to be a woman. What the fuck? Okay, ignoring all the obvious transphobic stuff, why go into the TV show? Can't you just go to Hollywood and talk to the writers who literally control what the character does? Yeah, this episode ain't much better than the other ones. But then something happened while I was watching the show. Episode 3, It's a Totally Wonderful Life, an episode in which Rufus, played by comedian Rick Overton, has a weird dream and screws up the past, and now the future is ruled by fascist polka fans. Okay, listen, the plot isn't important, but there's about 5 minutes in here where the show is actually good. To the point where Rufus visits a future where Bill and Ted are no longer friends. Bill's turned into a rich yuppie, and Ted is an undercover cop. It's these couple of scenes where Christopher Kennedy gets to actually do something other than make dumb faces and go, whoa. Here, watch this scene.
Stick, you practically shoved the money in his pocket, Logan. Nobody asked you to go trolling for good cops. Abbott's got 12 clean years on the streets.
Well, he's dirty now.
Thanks to you. You pull this guy's jacket, you find out his wife just got laid off, the bills are starting to pile up. Where's your loyalty, Logan?
I'm shooting for a bureau appointment. And I'm not going to waste my career on San Dimas like my old man.
The FBI. If you want the Fed's attention, you're going to have to reel in bigger fish than a couple of bad cops.
Then find me one.
See? For a second there, it turned into 21 Jump Street. And it's also where my feelings on the show changed. I went from hating it and everyone involved to just feeling sorry for everyone. Christopher Kennedy and Evan Richards are given nothing to work with, a point they make in an interview with Starlog after the first 7 episodes aired, but before the official word was given that the show wasn't coming back. We'd be on location in some strange neighborhood, having to react to effects that weren't there and saying things like, "Bogus, dude." We felt like we were playing a couple of idiots. Episode 3 feels like a fever breaking, where the show goes from torture to just boring. Evan and Richards tone down the whoa-ness in the process, becoming less irritating and more sedate. So here you have 2 guys that are the face of a network television show for a multi-million-dollar franchise, given only the barest of direction on how to act as these characters other than just kind of do what they did in the movie. This is what I think really kills the show. You can have a show with bad writing or dumb plots, but that can be overcome with lead characters that are fun to watch. But 2 guys doing an impression of 2 guys doing an impression of dumb metalheads leads to one of the most irritating shows in history. Their Bill and Ted loses all the charm of the Winters and Reeve iteration. So all that's left are the usual time travel TV cliches like meeting Einstein and King Arthur, even though King Arthur isn't an actual historical figure. It's nothing you've never seen before. There's an Elvis episode, which every show in the 80s and 90s used to do. The rest of the episodes are nothing to write home about either. It's all plots that would later reappear on the similar and long-running TV adaptations of Weird Science and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. You've got the episodes where they go back to the 60s and learn how to get girls to like them. Wait, what happened to the princesses? But what did these shows have that Bill and Ted didn't? Why did they run for multiple seasons and Bill and Ted was canned after only 7? For starters, they didn't have 2 extremely annoying lead characters, but second was more structural. Bill and Ted was on network television.
Fox is... well, Fox is Fox. They're about 3/4 of a network at best.
Okay, 3/4 of a network is still a network. Weird Science was on the cable channel USA, and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids was syndicated nationwide, which brings with it large upfront episode orders. This is so the show at least pays for itself and the production company can break even if it's not a success. Network TV is sink or swim, so if you don't knock it out of the park on the first episode, especially on a high-concept show like Bill and Ted, you're screwed. A point Evan Richards makes in an interview with BillandTed.org. The ratings at the time were actually not that bad. We needed to be able to grow creatively, and if anything, we needed a larger order of episodes to do that. There was discussion on the production side that if Fox didn't pick up the show for another season, the producer wanted to take the show to the cable network Nickelodeon. In hindsight, that would have been a great move, only because network television doesn't give as much of a chance to the premiering shows than cable stations. Understandably, they have more to risk and lose, namely their sponsors. We could have also gone into syndication. Most orders for new syndicated shows are something crazy like 50 episodes. That would have been great. The reason the television version of Weird Science did well was because it was on cable and had that large episode order advantage that I'm talking about. Don't forget other John Hughes movie-to-television series like Ferris Bueller and Uncle Buck were on network broadcast. Once again, they had short-lived lives like our show. We should have all been on cable. If you're curious about what happened to the stars of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures after the show ended, well, Christopher Kennedy has continued acting, enjoying a long career appearing in multiple films and television shows. You may recognize him from his recurring roles in the short-lived Showtime series Beggars and Choosers, or from the 2 episodes of Stargate SG-1 he appeared on. Evan Richards is mostly retired from acting and moved on to writing and directing. In 2005, he wrote and directed the film In a Day, a light, fun romantic comedy, or a tense psychological thriller depending on which trailer you watch. More recently, he's written and directed 2 short films, There's a Monster Behind You and Two People, One Ring, which are both making the festival circuit as we speak. Now back to the original question. We know what killed the show, but what killed the Bill and Ted franchise? Or at least made it lay dormant for so long? Was the live-action show just that bad? No, not really. Go back a year before the second film, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. It's a great movie, I think better than the original, but it's also very different from the first film. Excellent Adventure was basically a prototypical 80s family movie in that there's enough jokes and gags that everyone is going to laugh at something. It's also for the most part fairly harmless, outside of some language. There's no graphic violence or sex, it's just a fun sci-fi adventure film. The second film isn't that. Its working title was Bill and Ted Go to Hell. I know everyone likes to say that some movie or show or game is darker and more mature, which usually means more violent and immature, but the second act of Bogus Journey is a parody of an Ingmar Bergman film. That's pretty mature. This made it so that Bill and Ted was also a bit less easily presentable to mainstream audiences. It's hard to have a Saturday morning cartoon based around characters that hang out with the Grim Reaper and have met the literal devil. Okay, not counting the grim adventures of Bill and Mandy, which clearly took inspiration from Bill and Ted, and even have a tribute episode. But what the live-action show did was reaffirm a lesson learned from the live-action Ferris Bueller series, that you can't just recast the main characters and expect the same results. Don't get me wrong, there are exceptions to the rules, MASH being the best example, and Stargate SG-1, and Weird Science, and Honey, I Shrunk the... Okay, there's a lot of exceptions to this rule, but what the TV show proved was that Bill and Ted aren't the same without Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves, because Bill and Ted are just stereotypes of dumb 80s metalheads. They're basically blank sheets, so whether you like Bill and Ted comes down to the charisma chemistry of the cast. The TV series cast doesn't have that, at least they don't have it right from the start. If the show had run for 70 episodes, you'd definitely have seen Evan Richards and Christopher Kennedy make the characters their own, but they didn't have 70 episodes, they had 7 episodes. Meaning that Bill and Ted would forever be associated with Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves. So if there was ever going to be more than Bill and Ted, it would have to be with them in it, and with Alex Winter retiring from acting to become a director, and Keanu Reeves becoming a megastar, it meant they weren't going to make another movie unless it was more or less on their terms, which is why we're finally just now getting a third film in 2020. If you're curious what I thought about Bill and Ted Face the Music, short answer, I liked it. It was cute, and a fun time. You should probably check it out.
Try to boost the signal. We need to know what's going on.
Captain, if I were to integrate my systems with the troopers' memory banks, that might be sufficient.
All right, do it.
We're losing it. Mentor, can you increase the signal?
Affirmative.
Hello, anybody watching? This is Captain Power, Jonathan Power, here at 2147.
Special offer from Kellogg's Cornflakes. Join the excitement and adventure of Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future.
We saw the opportunity, the Captain Power concept really would fit nice with our interactive technology.
So remember, power on with Pepsi and win a PowerJet XT7.
To really watch the show the way it's designed to be watched, you have to go out and buy something to use with the program. That is the height of arrogance.
Captain Power, il capo dei combattenti del futuro.
Captain Power. Captain Power. We're losing you. Switch to transmission code 3.
Turn the power systems set on overload.